Do you consider practice as part of your art making? I'm Pat from Scrivener Art and Design, and in today's video, I'm going to show you one of my exercises that I use to practice. I also teach this as a part of my intuitive figure painting workshop. And speaking of workshops, if you are interested, I will be having a virtual workshop on my method of figure painting coming up in October. I'll put the link below. So in this video, I'm only going to be painting one of the figures out of this 4-quadrant paper, but if you stick around till the end, I will show you all 4 paintings. So let's get started. Okay, here goes. I'm activating the surface with a piece of charcoal. It just takes the scariness away. Now I'm going to use a Woody Stabilo in orange. So Woody Stabilo is like a waxy crayon and it is water soluble. So it could smudge and smear, but I could also fix it. I'm going to start applying some paint. So I've got a transparent yellow and I'm using a catalyst wedge to apply it. I have the panel, the paper, which is a Strathmore mixed media paper. I have it taped into 4 quadrants and I'm painting the whole paper as if it's one for now to get my messy marks on the background. I'm adding some teal blue here and I'm optically mixing. Optically mixing is when you apply paint over paint on your surface. It mixes differently than if you put your paint on your palette and homogenize it with a knife. So I like how you can get some gradations. I'm also picking up some wet paint. Now I'm going to put on some marks with a stencil. So adding some pattern can be an important part of making an interesting background. You can use several things to apply it, but here you see me using a color shaper brush. So it's a silicone brush and I'm putting a contrasting color of red. I'm using Amsterdam acrylic paint for this demo, and I'm going to be working on each quadrant separately. So when I'm adding the stencil, I don't like to fill it in everywhere to make it one big square. I'm just randomly filling in pieces of the stencil to get some pattern and interest down. And I want to make sure that I do get it into all the 4 quadrants on my paper. I find using the white artist tape, even though it's more expensive, it is less distracting than using a 3M blue low-tack tape or even the mauve tape. Now I'm going to come in and work some more on this. I'm going to put quite a thick layer of white paint over some of this now and show you a scratch back technique. Now I use a bamboo skewer a lot of times and I'm doing something that would resemble writing. This is called asemic writing, which means it looks like writing but it actually doesn't say anything. So I like to get some reference of the underpainting showing through. This works very well if you have high contrast. Say for instance I had a dark blue underneath there and I put white on, it would really show up. Here I have a foam roller with dots on it. This is from the kids section of the craft store. They come in a package with different patterns on them. I'm going to try the blue. That's coming off a bit better. And you can get pattern around your painting or paper substrate using these foam rollers. It's a fast way to add some pattern. I'm going back in with another woody Stabilo, this one in a different color. And I'm just scribbling and making marks. This is just something that I like to do. You'll find your own marks. Now this is water soluble, and you can see that by adding water, that will move around. I'm going to show you a Caran d'Ache crayon. And again, it is water soluble, so adding water, it gives me a watercolor effect. I can change the color of the under painting, or I can just use it to make marks. So I want to build up a really juicy background. So there's lots of information to respond to. You may try making marks with your non-dominant hand as well. I'm using a China marker here. Now, China markers are great for making marks because they are not water soluble, so you can make marks and not worry about it. I have a green Stabilo. So those Stabilo, woody Stabilo crayons come in a multitude of colors. Coming back in here with a charcoal pencil. I'm going to add some stamping. This is a styrofoam deli tray, and it has the little dots on it. If there isn't a pattern, it's easy enough to make your own, just using a ballpoint pen and drawing on the surface. You could also use store-bought stamps as well, or lino cuts, and this is a nice way to add some pattern as well. Pattern is, I think, an important element in design, and it gives something different to look at. And of course, a lot of this will disappear as I continue painting, but for now, I'm playing and having fun. This is how you can develop your signature style, your marks, your favorite combinations, your scribbles. If you're a process painter, this is very important to be able to play and express yourself before you start to commit to your painting. Don't be afraid to turn your substrate around and put marks going in different directions. So now I'm starting my first sketch. So you see the model up in the left corner, and I'm using a pencil, not sure exactly what it was, but it may be the Stabilo Markol, I think is what I'm using. and it's a great thing to mark on top of paint. So I'm roughly sketching this in. So my objective here is that I'm going to be doing 4 paintings of the same subject and allowing myself 20 minutes per painting. I'm not looking for accuracy necessarily. I'm using the drawing or the photo reference just as my reference to kind of get some interesting shapes. And I'm wanting to keep this quite loose and abstract. So I am going to be using the reductive technique of painting by blocking out a lot of the background and focusing on the figure, coming back in and making some more definition and details. But for now, just trying to establish a sketch. And I know it's a little bit hard to really see. So now I am starting to block out my background with an opaque paint, going around the figure. I may try to preserve some of the underpainting, and certainly any of the raised bits from the stencil will show up underneath, even if they're covered with paint. I know this is sometimes the hard part for people to paint over all those luscious marks they made, but this is how you can abstract your form. Now you could do it the opposite way as well. You could paint your figure in and leave the background with the marks and have your figure flatter. There's no right or wrong. The idea behind this exercise is to quickly paint 4 figures. And this is a study that I often do, an exercise in my workshops. Speaking of workshops, I will be hosting my intuitive figure course and my Soul Sisters workshop this fall. These will be held in my studio in Parksville, BC on Vancouver Island, if you're in the area. And if not, I will also have a virtual workshop on Zoom. I will put the link in the description, so if you are interested, you can check that out. So I'm adding some more color over top, trying to get some movement and some looseness. Pondering, thinking that her arm needed to be a little bit longer there. Adding a little bit of light color in for her face. And put a little bit of shape in the same color for her hand. I'm not going to worry about the hand on the other side. Adding a bag here. going back in with my my Mark All pencil and just adding a few little details just to indicate a little bit of a face. And if I add water to this, it will smudge. So I like going between painting and drawing. It can help define things, and it can loosen you up again, give your paintings a bit of a sketcherly quality. Coming back in with some more opaque paint. I would recommend that you set a timer when you do this so that you don't go way beyond, because it's easy to get carried away. So there you saw me adding some looseness and wildness into the hair, looking like she's in the wind. Just adding a few highlights now, giving her face a little bit of a more shadow side. I really encourage you to explore this technique of painting more than one of the same subject matter. And it certainly doesn't have to be figures. You could do fruit or cups or chairs or whatever you fancy. It's just a way of practicing and developing your eye, your hand coordination, trying out different color schemes. And you will be surprised, if you do 4 of the same subject matter, how it becomes easier as you go and your paintings become looser and probably better. This is Spectrafix, and it is used for fixing water-soluble media. It's actually for pastel, but I find it works well. The other thing you can use is Krylon, which is a aerosol one, and that works well too, the aerosol fixative. I just prefer not to use aerosol in my studio. Going into the background again, just making it a little more interesting and kind of blending my colors. Going back in, doing a little bit more detail on her face. Her face isn't really very great. but I am running out of time on my 20 minutes here for doing it. So just try and put in a little more definition there with my pencil. And adding a little bit of darks in to her pants, just because I don't have any dark value in my painting, and that is really important to have a good variation of value. So that really made the difference between the jacket and the pants there. Just trying to add a little bit of shadow. Give it the impression that the one leg is in front of the other. So that's all I'm going to do. And I'm going to show you the 4 that I did. So here's some close-up details. If you enjoyed my video and would like to see more, please consider subscribing to my channel and giving the video a thumbs up. I love comments too, and I answer all of them, so please leave a comment or ask a question. Until next time, bye.